Okay, for skills, we're going to just jump right in and start checking out all of them. Now, you won't be using all of them. You probably won't even be using all the ones here that I have on my build because if you go through them, you'll notice I planned to use some and then just gave up on it because it was actually pretty useless for the way I was playing him. Alright, so Nether. You see I've got 1 in every one of these. 1 is all you really need. You can go heavy Nether, but a lot of these give tons of entropic backlash. And entropic backlash is used to power this skill tree, the entropy skill tree, but you only have 2 ways to clear it, so that's not good. Now this is probably your most damaging move, Entropic Gift, but you have to build it up by basically taking on a debuff, a damage over time effect onto yourself. So I do have this maxed out, but that's just because I am going to get Entropic Backlash no matter what, and it's a good way to dump it. You're going to want to dump it anyway, so you might as well be doing the most damage you can with it. Alright, so Nether Blast. Fire a burst of unstable void energy, dealing 142 darkness and 117 temporal damage to the target. The power of this spell inflicts entropic backlash on you, causing you to take 14 damage over 8 turns. The damage counts as entropy for the purposes of Entropic Gift. Nether Blast is pretty good. We're in my fortress here. I'll just show you what it looks like. The best thing about Nether Blast is you can get it on staffs. This can have a on-spell hit cast Nether Blast, this staff, and that is just freaking awesome. On my Paradox Mage, I got one of them. Unfortunately, I didn't get it on this guy, but it procced so many times on my Paradox Mage that it just was a nice bonus damage. Alright, let's get him out of here. Nether Blast, it's my filler spell. I don't always use it, but if I find myself just waiting for a target to die, I'll cast Nether Blast. Alright, Rift Cutter. Fire a beam of energy that rakes across the ground, dealing 174 darkness damage to enemies within and leaving behind an unstable rift. After 3 turns, the rift detonates, dealing 144 temporal damage to adjacent enemies. Alright, think of this, it's like Vel'Koz in League of Legends. Vel'Koz is W, I think. Just puts a little line there, and then it blows up, attacking them again. So, it's actually... It's pretty good as a filler, especially with the Capstone ability in the Nether tree, which we'll get to next. Spatial Distortion. This is one of the better reasons to take Nether, in my opinion. Briefly open a radius 2 rift in space-time that teleports those within to the targeted location. Enemies will take 122 darkness and 102 temporal damage. Alright, now the reason we take this is because it will take our enemies and teleport them. Hold on. Let's see if... I don't know if you can actually move these guys, but we'll try. You cast it on them, and then you put them somewhere else. Obviously, it didn't work on him. And then targets that are immune to teleportation, it won't work on either. But let's look at this. For the Capstone ability, Halo of Ruin, really, it gives Spatial Distortion an even better ability, at least for the way I play. Alright, each time you cast a non-instant demented spell, a nether spark begins orbiting around you for 10 turns to a maximum of 5. Alright, so non-instant demented spell, all of these are demented, so it's pretty much all of your non-instant abilities, which is actually most of them now that I think about it. This one isn't reverse entropy, but I think most of them are. Yeah, I'm pretty sure most of them are not instant, except for the Time Thief one. Alright. Each spark increases your critical strike chance by 2%, and on reaching 5 stars, your next Nether spell will consume all sparks to empower itself. Now, if you do go heavy into Nether, this makes Nether Blast hit like a freaking truck. With Nether Blast, which is the first skill, becomes a deadly lance of void energy, piercing through enemies and dealing an additional 110% damage over 5 turns. Now, it'll get pretty high. But the cool part about it is it's a beam now. Alright, for Rift Cutter, it's decent if you're trying to get away from something. You can't always time when you're going to get 5 out of 5 charges, but it'll come up often enough that you should have a decent chance to be able to pin someone. Rift Cutter, those in the Rift will be pinned for 3 to 6 turns. Take 125 temporal damage each turn, and the Rift Explosion has 1 increased radius, so it's up to 3. Is it 3? I think it's actually only 2. It's 2 radius when it blows up. Now, with Spatial Distortion, an entropic maw will be summoned at the rift's exit for 4 to 5 turns, pulling in and taunting nearby targets with its tendrils. Now, I don't know if enemy knockback resistance counts on this, because it always seems to work. It basically summons a pet and it pulls everyone in, which is just, it's amazing, especially with Dark Whispers doing damage to them. But also, it helps keep enemies away from you. So I almost always, if I see that I have 5 out of 5 charges, I'll use Spatial Distortion. Now, what I actually do is, I don't even cast Spatial Distortion on a target. I'll just, I'll cast it on nothing, and then put the entropic maw exactly where I want it. You'll lose the damage on the targets, but again, it's not very much because we only have it at 1 out of 5. But especially with Halo of Ruin, at least the Halo of Ruin part, I should have taken more than 1 point in it which is with as much as I use the entropic maw. But let's actually try that. Alright, so we do Spatial Distortion just on nothing to make sure the enemies get pulled the way I want them to. And then it summons this little guy. And what he does is, I don't actually know if it... Yeah, Grasping Tendrils. Grab a target and drag it to your side, dealing 150 weapon damage and taunting it. Weapon damage is 122, so it's not terrible, but it's not good either. Alright, let's reset. Alright, moving onward to Madness. This is your bread and butter tree for this build. There are many different builds you can use, but this is the one where I get most of my damage. And it's hilarious because, look at this, Dark Whispers. Terrible visions and maddening voices fill the minds of enemies within a radius 3 area, inflicting 78 darkness damage each turn for 5 turns. In addition, this distraction will reduce physical, spell, and mind power of those afflicted by 19. The power loss caused by the spell can stack to a maximum of 58 powers. So you can do it 3 times and get a minus of 58 powers, which is actually to the point where your saves can be fairly overpowering to the enemies. But anyway, is what it looks like. Just that. See, it's only doing 73 dark damage per turn. However, it actually, when I maxed this out early on, it was doing like 23 damage per turn. And that's terrible, right? Well, it pairs with the Capstone ability amazingly well to do so much damage. So let's look at this for a second. It only does 73 darkness damage per turn. Well, let's go through this for a second. I use Frenzy. Wow, damn it, hold on, I need to reset that. So we use Frenzy, and that allows us to cast abilities twice before they go on cooldown. So we'll do, you'll always want to start with Void Monolith to tank for you, but it also gives you Insanity, which you're going to need. So you cast Dark Whisper, does 73 damage, except we got a crit, so we actually do more than that now. And then we cast Cacophony. But because we use Frenzy, we can immediately cast Dark Whispers again. Sometimes your Insanity effects are so high, your Dark Whispers won't have a cooldown regardless. But Frenzy just ensures you can get your rotation off. And then we do Cacophony again. Now look at this. That's 1200 damage per turn in a decent-sized AoE. So that's just crazy. You can see up here damage per turns. It's only 1000 damage per turn. But that's actually really decent. My Paradox Mage going ham with decently high Paradox, that's about what he can get to. He can get about 1100 damage per second. And that's just with 2 of my spells. So, let's go on. Dark Whisper seems like it sucks. It's actually pretty good. It's also got range 10, which is awesome, plus the radius, so it's actually like radius 13. But let's go on. Hideous Visions. Each time an enemy takes damage from Dark Whispers, there is a 10% chance for one of their visions to manifest in an adjacent tile for 3 turns. The vision takes no actions, but the victim will deal 21% reduced damage to all other targets until the vision is slain. A target cannot have more than 1 hallucination at a time. Now, this is good, but the 10% chance to cause it on the target you want is so low, it's just, you can't count on it. So it can get up to decently high reduced damage, I think about 40%, but it's not a high enough chance for it to happen each turn to actually count on it, so I leave it at 1. Alright, so we're going to go to Sanity Warp. Although the hallucinations from other targets, if, like you get a group of people, hallucinations likely to come out, it can get in their way, which is pretty cool, and it'll screw with their pathing and stuff. So we'll go on to Sanity Warp. This is one I think I could have taken more points in, but because it relies on Hideous Visions, I really didn't. When a hallucination from Hideous Visions is slain, it unleashes a Psychic Shriek, dealing 63 to 85 darkness damage to enemies in radius 1 of 2. It probably gets up to 3. Like I said, I didn't take it in. I didn't go up high enough in it. But with 10% chance of Hideous Visions happening, I didn't want to count on it. And I really didn't need to either, because it's an AoE, and we've got plenty of AoEs as it is. Alright, going on to Cacophony. This is what makes Dark Whispers so powerful. Raise your Dark Whispers in 10 radius to a deafening crescendo for 6 turns, applying another stack. So that immediately takes Dark Whispers up to 140 damage per turn. But then targets afflicted by Dark Whispers will have 20% higher chance to spawn illusions. That'll bring that up to 30%. I don't think it's multiplicative. I'm pretty sure it's additive. And each time they take damage from your Dark Whispers or Sanity Warp, they will also they take an additional 172% damage as temporal damage. So, what does that mean? Well, let's throw something on there. Let's do the Monolith. We'll do one. Oh, god damn it. We'll do 1 Dark Whispers, and then that's 72 damage, right? Each turn. So Cacophony turns that into 726 damage. We got a crit in there, but that is just crazy. It takes 75 darkness damage and basically times it by 10. That's insane. Obviously, that was a crit, but I wonder what is a more realistic value for that. Well, here's a problem. I've got 88% crit chance, so we're going to be hard pressed to not get a crit on that. But 73 darkness damage up to 800, that is insane. And that's in an AoE 10 radius, anything that has Dark Whispers on it. So that is crazy. Alright, so that's going to be your bread and butter. Especially in the beginning, it's going to be it's kind of difficult to get a Cultist of Entropy started, but what you're going to be doing is Dark Whisper, Runaway 1, Dark Whisper, Runaway 1, Dark Whisper, and then if anything's chasing you, throw a black Monolith in the way, and you're good. Alright, now we're going to go on to the defenses portion of the Demented skill set. The pure defensive, like, makes you more buff, not debuffing the enemies. Alright, Void Stars. Conjure Void Stars that orbit you, defending you from incoming attacks. Each time an attack deals more than 10% of your life, which happens all the time, a star will be consumed to reduce the damage taken by 40%, of which 40% will be dealt to you as entropic backlash. Really good when it happens. It basically, you regenerate 1 star up every 10 turns, stacking up to 4. So we only have 4 of these. That seems kind of shitty, right? You can only really defend yourself 4 times in 10 turns until you get a 5th defense. However, what this actually does is it buys you enough time to get all your debuffs off on the enemies. That's Hideous Visions and all the other ones that we'll come up to next. Here in a little bit anyway. So, this is actually very good. Null Mail, this is also really good. Reinforce your armor with countless tiny Void Stars, increasing armor by 24 to 32. Each time your Void Stars are fully depleted, you gain a shield absorbing the next 160 damage taken within 4 turns. This shield cannot trigger again until your Void Stars are fully restored. So basically this'll happen once. So it basically prolongs the length of time your Void Stars are going to defend you. The armor lasts forever, and 24 armor, that's insane. It actually gets up to like 50 if you max it out. I don't know why I didn't max this out. I probably should have, but I was pretty beefy as it was. Like, I didn't have trouble staying alive at all. Alright, one of the best spells that the Cultist of Entropy has is the Black Monolith. Consuming a Void Star, again, it's even taking away from the 4 we have already. It consumes a Void Star, so you're down to 3. You use it to summon a Void Monolith at the targeted location for 7 to 8 turns. The Monolith is very durable, and while immobile, it will attempt to daze enemies within radius 1 for 2 turns every half a turn using your spell power. Our spell power is high enough that we should be able to beat most spell saves, so the daze should be going off pretty frequently. The Monolith will gain 4 life rating and 43% all resist based on your magic stat. So, let's summon this. It's got 1800 health and 43% all resist, so it's actually very tanky. It should be able to tank its lifetime is what, 7 turns. 7 turns is a good enough amount of time. It can be killed by some of the more powerful Rand bosses, but for the most part, it should last almost the entire 7 turns anytime you need it. And there are so many corridors like this, you just always be using it. The only part that I don't like about it is you can't go through it. You can't switch places with it, so don't put it behind you if you've got enemies in front of you. Or if you're being pincered, if you put it behind you, you're not going to be able to switch places with it. Alright, going on, Essence Reeve, you need this one. It does a lot of damage, but it takes so much Insanity, 25, that it's hard to use towards the end because you're really not building up a lot of Insanity, especially with Dark Whispers. It's the lowest Insanity gain that you can get, but it's also really, it doesn't give you any Entropic Backlash, so it's just a very low Insanity building move. However, what Essence Reeve does, you rend the very essence of the target, drawing on their life and converting it to Void Stars. The target takes 356 Darkness and 293 Temporal damage, and you gain 2 Void Stars. You have to get 4 points in it to get the extra Void Star. 3 out of 5 only gives you 1. So definitely get up to, you want to take this up to 4. The damage will increase with your spell power. It does, like I said, it does a ton of damage, but the Insanity cost is 25. It's too much to use unless you really need your Void Stars back. Usually to get a block Monolith out. Alright, Entropy. This will not be useful, and it'll be a huge hindrance until pretty much late game. But it's the main selling point of the class. You cannot get rid of Entropic Gifts, so you might as well get used to it. Your unnatural existence causes the fabric of reality to reject your presence. 25% of all direct healing received damages you in the form of Entropic Backlash over 8 turns, which is irresistible and bypasses all shields but cannot kill you. Therefore, like if you use a healing infusion, these, which are awesome, it actually gives you Entropic Backlash. But if you use a regeneration infusion, it does not. So, if you really don't like Entropic Backlash, get used to using regeneration infusions over healing infusions. But it's not a big deal. At least, I mean, it is a big deal. If you're ever taking a lot of damage and you don't know where from, look at your Entropic Backlash. That's why you're probably dying. You may activate this talent to channel your entropy onto a nearby enemy, removing all Entropic Backlash to inflict darkness and temporal damage equal to 173% of your entropy over 4 turns. Now, you can get Entropic Backlash up to like 1200 damage, so that's actually a sizable damage over time. Although it is over 4 turns, so it's... At its best, it will do as much damage as your Dark Whispers and Cacophony. If you really push it, it can get more, but then you're damaging yourself. Too much, in my opinion. Your knowledge of entropy allows you to defy the laws of physics, allowing you to better endure your entropic energies. You take 59% less damage from your Entropic Backlash. This is awesome. It also, you may activate this talent to instantly remove your current entropy. So between these two, you have 2 ways to dump your entropy. However, you really only have 1, because this is a cooldown 15, but because of the third skill, and because it gives you 20 Insanity, you're going to be wanting to use it near the beginning of battle. It gives you an instant 20 Insanity, so it's one of your biggest Insanity gains outside of Black Monolith, which also gives 20. But with these 2, you should be set for Insanity on a single fight unless it really drags on. Alright, the other reason I use Entropic Gift near the beginning of the fight, like either turn 1 or 2, depends, is because of Black Hole. This is an awesome ability. On casting Entropic Gift, a radius 1 rift in space-time will be opened underneath the target for 3 turns, increasing in radius by 1 each to each turn to a maximum of 2 and then 3. I left it at radius 2. It was big enough for what I needed it to be, but I wanted the 3-turn duration, so that's why I took it up to 3. All caught within the rift are pulled towards the center and take 29 darkness damage and 24 temporal damage, plus 13% of your total entropy each turn. That's not so great. I mean, if you got up to 1,000 entropy, it'd only be like 160 damage altogether. So the damage portion of it isn't great. It's the Maelstrom part of it. It pulls enemies into a specific spot. So if you don't have... It'll stop enemies that don't have a teleport, jump, or rush. It'll basically stop them because they'll move, they'll get pulled back. They'll move, they'll get pulled back for 3 turns straight, and that happens in a radius 2, so it's going to get more than just your initial target. Power Overwhelming. This can be a pain, so you might want to leave it off, till later, but you empower your spells with dangerous levels of entropic energy, increasing your darkness and temporal damage by 20%, it says 19 there, and resistance penetration by 29% at the cost of suffering 30 entropic backlash for each non-instant spell. So, normally Dark Whispers doesn't give you entropic backlash. However, with that sustain on, it's going to give you 30. Which reduces every turn. But yeah, 30 entropic backlash for each non-instant spell. So when you have this on, you're going to build entropy a lot faster, especially when compared with how much you build with how much entropy you get with this specific build. With this specific build, you won't actually gain a lot of entropy unless you have this on. So it's useful for late game, especially getting through resistance penetration, or the resistance penetration, because a big problem with the Cultist of Entropy is they are split damage casters. They do darkness damage and they do temporal damage. I hate that, because then you actually have to build up penetration for two separate elements, because you need penetration, especially on Insane. So you can either completely ignore the temporal portion, which you really can't do with Dark Whispers, or you need to spend itemization points on getting temporal resistance penetration and darkness resistance penetration to serviceable levels, which I think is like 80% or above. I actually got close to 100% with both of these. I don't have it on right now. Why don't I have it on right now? Well, it says only 62 and 42 right now, but I had it close to 100 each. Don't know what I've changed. I've been playing around, and then I dropped some of my stuff down here too. But let's go on. Damage is always nice too, so you'll want to probably 5 out of 5 this, even though it does have pretty big diminishing returns as you get to 5 out of 5. All right, Time Thief. This is a very amazing tree. You might not think so at first, but it really is. I didn't bother with Accelerate because I had a movement infusion. I would rather rely on a movement infusion than Accelerate. But anyway, distorting space-time around yourself, you reduce the movement speed of all enemies in radius 7 by 50% for 2 to 3 turns. You use the siphoned speed to grant yourself incredible quickness for 1 turn, increasing movement speed by 123%, increased by a further 15% for each enemy slowed to a maximum of 4. So as you can see, even at its most powerful, it's going to be pretty bad compared to a movement infusion. So I would suggest only 1 point in this, and I still used it a couple times, but it was never something I counted on. Switch. Amazing freaking spell. Insanity costs 15, so you need to be aware of that, but release a surge of entropy, cleansing yourself of afflictions while draining the energy from others. All enemies in a range 10, that's a fucking huge range, anybody you can see basically, will have the duration of 4 beneficial effects reduced by 6, while you will have an equal number of detrimental effects reduced by the same duration. So that's like 4 debuffs reduced by 6, except for the like hexes, like Burning Hex and a Pacification Hex. This is gonna pretty much get rid of most debuffs that you sustain. I know Armored Skeletons can get a huge stun, but that's you'll be stun resistant anyway, so that's really not a problem. But this, rely on this. This is amazing. It's like a bad Timeless that Shalor get, and Timeless is probably the most overpowered ability in the game. All right, Suspend. I suspect this is good, but I never used it. I'm afraid of giving enemies turns without me acting. You and all enemies within radius 3 or 4 will be frozen in time for 2 turns, preventing you from taking any action but preventing any damage taken. For yourself, negative effects and cooldowns will decrease in duration, while beneficial effects will remain at their current duration. For enemies, negative effects and cooldowns will not decrease, while beneficial effects decrease in duration. It's basically like it's kind of like Switch, but you're giving enemies who are not in radius 3 or 4 chance to get closer to you. So unless you're really set up and positive that they can't get around the other enemies, I wouldn't want to use this. All right, Split. I thought this was good. It's okay, but it's not amazing, and I'll explain why in a second. The target enemy will be partially removed from the normal flow of time for 9 turns, good duration, inhibiting their ability to interact with the world. All damage taken will be reduced by 58%, while damage dealt will be reduced by 62%, so you're gaining a little bit there. While active, you form the frayed threads of their timeline into a temporal clone for the same duration, which assists you in combat. The clone is identical, but has 42% reduced life and deals 62% damage. Alright, the problem here is you would normally want to use this on a high priority target to lower their damage, but with high priority targets you want to take them out quickly. If you can. Sometimes you can't, and that's where split comes in, but most of the time you're going to be able to split, or you're going to be able to take out high priority targets, at least towards the end game when you've got all your damage and skills working together. However, the main use for this is when you got 2 high priority targets, and there are some situations, some specific ones, especially towards the end, where that's a good boon. However, in most situations, you're not gonna want 2 priority targets targeting you at once. Even the final bosses, you can split them up because their pathing is so wonky, or I don't know, it's something about their AI that they like to get split up, or it's easy to split them up. So even then, this isn't going to be great. And reducing the damage they taken by 60%, that's wasting a lot of your Dark Whispers and Cacophony right at the start when you want them to be doing their full damage. So maybe after these have both worn out and you're waiting for cooldowns, then split. But it's not as good as I thought it was at first, in my opinion. Alright, Demented Rift. You can ignore this. I wanted to make it work so many times, but I've taken it on every single Cultist of Entropy I've made, and they just never... The best part about it is this one that I put 1 in. So that'll tell you a lot about how I know how to use them, or how I thought I was going to use them. Okay. The sheer reality fracture. The sheer power of your entropy tears holes through space-time, opening this world to the void. On casting a demented spell, you have a 30% chance of creating a void rift lasting 6 turns in a nearby tile, which will launch void blasts each turn at a random enemy in range 7, dealing 38 darkness damage and 31 temporal damage. Okay, so it does low damage. However, you may activate this talent to forcibly destabilize space-time, spawning 2 void rifts around you. It's not a problem of getting them, but it happens in a radius 10 around you. So look at where we are right now. The enemy's in front of you, right? Well, I spawned these. We were lucky to get them there. It can also spawn 10 tiles back here. Well, what am I going to do with that? Like, I want them all to spawn close to where, at least, maybe not with Reality Fracture, but when I cast a spell, I want it to, look at that. I want that over here. There's no way that's going to ever do any damage to this guy. So that's the problem I have with it. Now, there is something I can still use for this. I can teleport to it with the second skill, which is nice. You can't teleport in here is the problem. But I could use that as a teleport, is what I'm saying. The problem is, I'd rather the rifts spawn near the enemy. They already do low damage, which is a pain. However, a way to alleviate the low damage of them is each cast can proc on spell hit items. So if you look at this down here, it says talent on hit spell Arcane Vortex. It's got a 10% chance, which is pretty low. But if you get, watch this. I can do Frenzy. Let me get more of them, more Insanity real quick. All right. If I use Frenzy, I can get 5 or 6 of them out at once. So that's a lot. That's 50% chance. I don't know how you do probabilities, but it's not actually 50%. But each one of those has a 10% chance on cast to spawn an Arcane Vortex, which does another 60 arcane damage per turn, and it shoots at people like it shoots at people around the target. So there are some really good on-hit spell procs, I think. Let's see if I've got the Fiery Choker still. This one's really good, Volcano. It's attached to a crappy item, in my opinion, but I did use it for a while. Volcano 10% chance at level 3. That's pretty good. I've had like 6 volcanoes up at once because I have a sneaking suspicion they can spawn themselves. So like when a volcano hits, it'll spawn another volcano, but I'm not exactly sure on that, so don't quote me. But anyway, yeah. Low damage, that's not the problem. They spawn everywhere. That's the problem. I need them to spawn less randomly. Alright, Quantum Tunneling. You briefly open a tunnel through space-time, teleporting to a void rift in range 10. This destroys the rift, granting you a shield for 4 turns, absorbing 230 damage. I do use this quite a bit, just to maneuver around, but you cannot rely on it, because you don't know where your things are going to spawn. And this is like a last resort teleport, basically. The shield is okay, but it's pretty low anyway. Going on, Pierce the Veil. pouring more energy into your rifts, you have a 35% chance for each one instead appear as a more powerful type. A Nether Breach fires a beam instead of a blast, so it'll go through targets. Darkness damage at a random target in radius 10. The beam portion of it isn't really a big deal though, because it's random. The positioning is so random you can't even control if it's going to go through a target or not. And even if you could control positioning, it's still a random target. So that's not so great. Temporal Vortex inflicts 71 temporal damage each turn to enemies in a radius 4 and reduces their global speed by 30%. That one's useful because it's got a radius 4, and it's more likely to hit one target, and also it's got a 30% global slow, which is always nice. Not huge, but it's nice. Alright, Dimensional Gate. This is by far the best one. Each turn has a 50% chance to summon a Voidling lasting 4 to 5 turns. A fast melee attacker that can teleport. Doesn't matter if the rift spawns behind you, because they'll teleport in front of you to your attacker. The stats of your Void Skitterer scale with your magic stat and level. That's actually... This a Void Skitterer? It is. Let's look at them. Damage is pretty low, 101. Accuracy is 80, so it's enough to get past defenses of most targets. Talent, it just jumps to the target. And then it's also got 900 hit points. That's basically 4 turns of them getting in the way of your enemies, so they can't get to you, which is pretty nice. I really like Void Skitterers. It's the best probably part of this tree. 0 point energy, or the best part of the actual rifts, not the teleport. 0 point energy. You draw power from the depths of the void, causing your reality fracture to enhance any existing rifts. Okay, so what this does is, if I've already got rifts out and then I cast oh god, what's it called? 0 point energy. Or if I cast reality fracture, sorry, it'll enhance all the other ones with specific effects. Void Rift, that's the normal one, deals 60% increased damage and projectiles explode in a radius 1. That's okay, but it's already low damage, so increasing it by 60% is going to be great. Nether Breach deals 60% increased damage and chains to 3 targets. That's better. That actually makes the beam worthwhile. Temporal Vortex deals 60% increased damage, radius increased by 1, and slow increased to 50%. That's a very big increase. The radius increase is huge. It's like a 30% increase in radius, and the slow increase to 50% is awesome. That's once every 2 turns. You're going to get an extra turn versus your target or group of targets. Alright, and then the Voidling Skitterers. Skitterers will be frenzied, increasing their global speed by 60%. That's not a big increase because they're already doing what you need them to. They're teleporting to the target and they're getting in their way. You don't need their global speed to be bigger, but I mean, it's not a big deal. It's going to increase their damage by 60% anyway, so. Alright, Chronophage. I should have taken the points in Rift and put them in Chronophage. But I like Rift. I like the way it sounds, getting a bunch of things shooting all at once, but it just never seems to work out. Alright, Atrophy. You are surrounded by a vortex of entropic energy that feeds on the timeline of others. Each time you cast a spell, random targets in a radius 10, so again, a huge radius, begin rapidly aging and decaying, reducing all stats by 2 for 8 turns, stacking up to 10 times. Up to 6 stacks, or up to 5 stacks total will be applied to enemies each cast with a max of 2 stacks on the same target. Alright. So basically, if you've got 1 target, it'll apply 2 stacks. If you got 2 targets, it'll apply 2 stacks to each target. If you got 3 targets, it'll stack 2 on 2 and then 1 on the third one. That's kind of what that 5 stacked. It's kind of weird the way it works, but it makes sense. But you cast so often and so quickly, you're gonna have max stats on everything, which is gonna basically be a minus 16 stats or minus 20 stats on everything, basically. Everything that's attacking you is going to have minus 20 stats. It's not huge, but it's still good. It's a debuff that you don't have to worry about. It's passive. Like, it's just going to happen. So it's just another way you can debuff your enemies. Alright, Severed Threads. I really wanted to like this one, and I specifically got this. I didn't have enough points left, but I had another cap point left, and this is the reason I got it, but I was very disappointed. On applying Atrophy to a target below 15% of their maximum life, you will sever the timeline, slaying them instantly. You will then feast on the remnants of their timeline for 2 to 3 turns, increasing your life regeneration by 25 and causing talents without fixed cooldowns to refresh twice as fast. That's what I wanted. Talents to reduce twice as fast. You cannot receive the invigoration from this talent more than once every 15 turns. The problem is, by the time they get to negative or to 15%, the next tick on Dark Whispers and Cacophony is going to kill them. And if it doesn't tick and apply Atrophy when they're below 15%, then you don't feast on them, so you don't get the bonuses. So it actually rarely went off. Like, I was surprised at how often it did not go off. I specifically tried getting it to go off, and I still had trouble doing it. But I really wanted to like this. I wish that below 15% went up higher, and just get rid of the killing them automatically. Like, I don't care if it insta-kills them. I want the other buffs, The 25 life regeneration, that's nice. And with the way this works, you would always have it on you. But nope, not very great. Temporal Feast. You drink deeper from the timeline of others. Each time you apply atrophy, you gain 1.7% speed per atrophy stack on the target and cause them to lose 3% of a turn. The highest entropy stack found, I think it's supposed to be atrophy, stack found will be used for the cast speed calculation. So that's, if you can get 10 stacks on something, 17% cast speed, and it just goes up. So that's just basically, for a lot of the time you're a turret, you're sitting there casting, you're not moving a lot. So this is actually really good. The cast speed applies to you quite often. All right, Terminus. This one I think is really good, but I've never actually used it. I tried to use it on one of my other Cultists of Entropy, but I didn't have enough knowledge of how the cultists work to actually use it very well. Shatter the space-time continuum around yourself, inflicting 166 temporal damage to all targets within radius 10. Any atrophy stack will be consumed to steal time from your enemies, inflicting an additional 27 temporal damage and granting you 2% of a turn per stack, but no more than 3 turns. Alright, now that gets up to, I think, like 10%. It might only be 6 or 7%, I don't know. But let's just say 10%. You have one target with 10 stacks, you consume them, you get 20% of a turn, or 70% of the turn if you haven't maxed out, so that's almost a full turn. However, with the way atrophy works, and by the time you get your Dark Whispers and Cacophony Frenzy rotation off, and Black Monolith, you're going to have a ton of stacks, more than 10 definitely. And then, like, on most situations, I would assume to get at least 2 turns from Terminus, or close to 2 turns. Like, that's not out of the realm of possibility. 3 turns, I think you'd have to set that up, but that's fine. All right, now let's go on to Demented Oblivion. This is why everybody picks, or this is what everybody picks at first. And it probably is the best in longer fights, so like the final boss fight and stuff like that. But I think actually short term, it loses out on damage or equals the damage of Dark Whispers and Cacophony. Now, I'll try to explain why, but it's kind of hard to explain the concept, but we'll try. Nihil. Your entropy bleeds into the world around you. It's basically like atrophy, but with a different effect. On having entropic backlash applied or increased to you, one random enemy you can see within 10 radius will be shrouded in entropic forces for 4 turns. This increases the duration of new negative effects and reduces the duration of new beneficial effects applied to the target by 17%. Now that alone is actually pretty good, and probably beats out atrophy by itself. But we'll go onwards. Unravel existence. Your Nihil unravels the existence of the target, tearing them apart with entropy. If 6 effects, that's the debuffs, are applied before Nihil expires, a Herald of Oblivion will be summoned to assist you for 4 turns. I think it gets up to 7 turns. The Herald will have a bonus to all attributes equal to your magic. Many other stats will scale with level. Your increased damage, damage penetration, critical strike chance, and critical strike multiplier stats will all be inherited. So as you get better, he gets better. Now, the 6 effects it's not hard to apply them, especially if you use these. That's why I stopped using them, because I put 3 points in it, but then I realized I wasn't going to use the Herald, so I didn't really need it. But the problem is, all right, you're going to spend 2 turns getting your 2 casts off of Doom. That'll apply 3 effects, right? Then you do Dark Whispers, that's the 4th effect. Then you do Cacophony, that's the 5th effect. And if you overpower their spell save enough, you can also spell shock them, and that's the 6th effect. However, I think you need to cast first, because Nihil needs to be applied on your target before you start casting the debuffs. And I don't think it actually, it's a random target, and it can do more than one enemy at once, but the problem is, I think you need to cast something else first. So start with Black Monolith, and then make sure your target actually has the Nihil effect on him. Nihil doesn't count as a debuff towards summoning the Herald. So, basically, what you're going to do is, you're going to do one of these, cast 2 of the debuffs, and then another one you have to manually cast. So, that'll give, yeah, we already went over what you need to do it. However, if you don't get spell shocked, by the time you get everything off, you will have you'll have Halo of Ruin active, and you can actually do Nether Blast, and that will give them Void Burn, which will give you your 6th effect, whether you Spell Shock them or not. Now, this all depends on you beating their spell save with each and every attack, which, I mean, for the most part, once you get decent equipment, it's going to happen. You're going to beat their spell save every time. However, if one messes up, you'll get into this like rotation where, okay, that one was resisted or whatever, or he healed it somehow. So I gotta cast another one. Okay, well then that turn ticked by, and then my Dark Whispers wore off. Okay, I gotta do Dark Whispers again. Okay, now my Cacophony had worn off, but I can't cast Cacophony again because it got a 15 turn cooldown. So you see, it's annoying, and you have to sit there and cast all these spells in a row because Dark Whispers only lasts 5 turns. So you need to get these all off in 5 turns, or it's not gonna work. Now, when the Herald appears, he does a huge AoE ability. I think he does physical and temporal, but don't quote me on that. And that makes up for some of the damage you're going to lose by losing 2 turns of damage with casting your Dooms. However, with Dark Whispers and Cacophony, that the first 4 turns, you're already doing a ton of damage. Okay, now on the 5th turn, you can cast something like Entropic Gift or something, or Nether Blast or whatever. You can cast something else that does damage. But with this, you're taking 5 turns just for the hope to get the Herald out, and the damage is going to be equal or less. The reason being because you're not focused on getting your Dark Whisper damage up or your Cacophony damage. I guess you could still max this out and go this way, which is probably the best way to go about it, if I'm being honest. However, I don't like relying on the Herald. It only lasts 6 turns. I got to make sure all the stars align to make sure I get him out, and it's still not going to... The damage with it is only going to take off in longer fights, and already I'm ending most fights pretty quickly in an AoE with just Dark Whispers and Cacophony. And I don't have to do all this extra stuff. I just do Dark Whispers, Cacophony, Dark Whispers, Cacophony, and then I can either run away or do more damage. And my damage is going off whether I'm there or not. But with the Herald, you have to get him up, and then you have to do it again. I mean, the cooldown is 22 turns, so really you're not going to do it twice in one battle. But all things said, I do believe Herald would outdamage the Dark Whispers Cacophony combo. I just think it's easier to do Dark Whispers and Cacophony, and you're still doing enough damage to where you can beat the game. So if I had to do Cultist again, I would get rid of Rift, go heavy into Chronophage, and if I had enough left, try to get the Herald. So take that for whatever you might. All right, going through this combat training, obviously thick skin, at least 4 out of 5, but I do 5 out of 5 because I love resistance to everything. I went light. You have to go light armor training if you want to use Void Stars. Honestly, I don't know which is better. I think heavy armor would still pull ahead from light armor training, and then you can use your Void Stars for Black Monolith almost like exclusively. You don't got to worry about running out of Void Stars, and then you don't need to take Essence Reeve either. But I don't know. Depends. You'll obviously want one into heavy armor training so you can get the gloves, boots, and helmet. All right, with Doom, let's go over these. Prophecy. By bringing the forces of entropy to bear on a target, you prophesize their inevitable doom. Each point in this talent unlocks additional prophecies. A target can only be affected by a single prophecy at a time. Prophecy of Madness. Increased talent cooldowns by 18%. Prophecy of Ruin deals 45 damage on falling below 75%, 50%, and 25% maximum life. That's just terrible. I don't understand what Prophecy of Ruin is. Like, so what? My enemies have multiple thousands of life. So if I take them down 500 hit points, oh yeah, you'll do another 45. Like, that's stupid. But Treason is very good. Prophecy of Treason. 12% chance each turn to attack an ally or themselves. That's very nice. Now, it says a target can only be affected by a single prophecy at a time. However, there's a way around that. All right, you speak a chosen prophecy to the masses. When applying this prophecy, it will spread to all targets in a radius 1. A prophecy can only be affected by 1. Grand Oration, Twofold Curse, or Revelation. All right, Twofold Curse. So this basically turns a prophecy into an AoE. Twofold Curse. Weave your chosen prophecy into your speech, dooming your foe twice over. The chosen prophecy will... will apply instantly to your primary target whenever you cast any other prophecy at talent level 1. and it gets up to level 5. A prophecy can only be... Yeah. So basically, what I do with this, I do twofold curse with Prophecy of Treason. And then I also do Prophecy of or I do... how do I do this? I do Prophecy of Treason, but I connect twofold curse with Prophecy of Madness. That way, when I cast Prophecy of Treason, it immediately puts Prophecy of Madness on it as well. So basically lets you get 2 prophecies on one person, and you cast them both at once. So that's the way you get around a target can only be affected by a single prophecy. All right, Revelation, very good spell if you're going this route. As you speak the chosen prophecy, whispers from the void guide you in how to bring about the downfall of your foe. The chosen prophecy will grant you one of the following effects for 10 turns. Prophecy of Madness. Each time the target uses a talent, one of your talents on cooldown has its cooldown reduced by 1 turn. That's decent. Each time the target takes damage, you are healed for 6% of the damage dealt. That's decent. I don't think it applies just to the damage dealt through the prophecy though. So it's actually a decent heal, but you shouldn't need it as a cultist. However, it will go. I think it does go to your entropic backlash, so there might be a synergy between entropic gift and this. I'm not sure. I didn't go that route. And then Prophecy of Treason. 7% of all damage you take is redirected to a random target affected by the damage link. So basically, Revelation, you're not going to be able to use it on Madness or Treason because we've already... Actually, no, you can use it on Madness. You can't use it on Treason. Oh, God, these are so confusing. All right, for Grand Oration, we use Madness. So with Revelation, we can use Treason. And that's the one you do want to use it for. So even though you have this affected by Revelation... or even though you have Prophecy of Treason affected by Revelation, when you cast Treason, it'll get this bonus, but it's still going to cast twofold curse via Madness. Or it's still going to cast Madness via twofold curse. So you're getting both of these, even though it's just confusing the way they work, because one depends on the other. It's just weird. It's hard for me to wrap my head around anyway. Very decent tree to go down. That's another reason why the Herald is decent. Even if you're not doing damage with these, you're getting other benefits like Prophecy of Treason or Prophecy of Madness. So that's just another reason why Herald is a decent way to go, because these are actually good on their own and they're part of how you summon the Herald. All right, Demented Calamity. The reason I went this way is because it's like Atrophy, in that it just happens around you regardless of what you're doing. So your touch carries an entropic curse, marking your victims for a terrible fate. Each time you deal damage to a target, they are jinxed for 10 turns. This stacks up to 10 times, reducing saves and defense by 3. Totally useless in my opinion. It's good for getting Spell Shock for Herald, I guess. And Critical Strike by 2%. That's good. Reducing their Critical Strike is very good, because Critical Strikes are what's going to spike you. Maybe not on the Cultist of Entropy, because they've got different types of defenses like Void Stars. The crits are going to be lowered in damage as it is, but it's still nice to lower the critical strike chance of your enemies. This can only be applied once per target per turn, so it's still going to take you 10 turns to actually get it fully maxed out, but on the targets you're not actually killing, it's going to debuff them, and they will get 10 stacks on them. The target you're actually targeting, probably not going to get 10 stacks on, unless they're super buff ran bosses. Alright, targets will begin losing 1 stack of Jinx each turn if they have not received damage from you in the last 2 turns. With Dark Whispers, not a huge deal, and then with your pets too, you'll actually do damage too. So, alright, Fate Breaker. This is pretty good, but I don't count on dying, so I never took it. You form a link between yourself and the chosen target for 4... We missed Luck Drinker, I'll go back to that. You form a link between yourself and the chosen target for 4 turns, tying your fates together. If during this time you receive fatal damage, you reflexively warp reality, ending the effect and attempting to force them to die in your place. This prevents all damage taken during that turn, redirecting it to your target as temporal or void damage. Any fortune stacks you have and any jinx stacks the enemy have will then be consumed to heal you for 9 life per stack. So that's about 180 damage if you've got them both stacked to 10. Not a lot. I did take this on one of my earlier Cultist of Entropies, but the one situation where I actually needed it to work, I still died right after. I guess I didn't heal me enough and something hit me immediately after, but I don't know. Luck Drinker. Each time you apply Jinx to an enemy, you have a 75% chance to siphon some of their luck for yourself for 10 turns. This stacks up to 10 times, increasing saves and defense by 3 and critical strike chance by 2%. Now, that's 20% critical strike, decent, but normally I wouldn't care about saves. However, this is giving you 30 saves, and over here, if you go to Dark Whispers, this is lowering their spell powers by 58. So it tips the scales to the point where it actually makes your saves pretty decent compared to your enemies, even if you don't stack saves whatsoever. If you get just some saves on your gear on accident, like, that's enough to overpower your enemies if you can get both of these working together at once, Dark Whispers and Luck Drinker. So it's actually pretty decent, even though it gives saves. But the critical strike chance is nice anyway. That's why I left my critical strike chance at 88%, because with this, I'm easily hitting 100% as it is. Alright, Chaos Orbs. You harness the chaos created by high insanity. Each time you trigger an insanity chaotic effect with a power higher than 8 or lower than -8, you gain a chaos orb for 10 turns. Each orb increases your damage by 3% and can stack up to 7. Alright, it's hard to use these effectively with a Dark Whispers Cacophony build, because you don't build insanity as quickly, but it still happens to the point where we can make use of the tree. For the insanity chaotic effect higher than 8 or lower than -8, alright, what insanity does is it's gonna change the cooldown of your spell either positively or negatively. So the -8 means it's like -8% cooldown reduction, and then the 8% is like 8% cooldown reduction. It's probably not the exact values, but it's like that. So if it's a good effect, it lowers your cooldown. If it's a bad effect, it raises your cooldown. That's why sometimes we can get Dark Whispers off twice in a row without any problems, because your insanity can get up to, I think, 50%. So it lowers Dark Whispers by 50%, and since it's a cooldown of 3, it basically turns it into a cooldown of 1. But it can also make it up to a Dark Whispers cooldown of 5, I've seen. So it can be pretty negative, but there's ways of mitigating that, and I'll show you how later. Or we'll go over that later. You consume Anarchic Walk. This is very good. It sounds crappy, but it's really good. You consume the chaotic forces of 2 Chaos Orbs, randomly teleporting you in a general direction up to 8 tiles away. You will always travel at least 5 tiles away if possible. Basically, when you cast this, it gives you like a cone effect, and in that cone effect, it's like this. If you see on the screen, it would be like this, like a triangle, like that. And within that triangle, you go at least 5 tiles that way. So now if you see how this is set up, if I do it backwards, the only place I can end up is in this corridor. So even though it says a general direction, you can get it to go where you want to pretty easily, just by targeting most of the wall. Then you only have so many places you can go. Alright, Disjointed Mind. You trigger an explosion of your Chaos Orbs on a target. Your orbs do no damage but confuse it for 6 to 8 turns with a confusion power of 10% per orb. Your effective spell power used to overcome the target's mental save is also increased by 10% per orb. So basically it's a guaranteed confuse, but I don't like using all your orbs are always spent, and I don't like using that. So it's a decent confuse, but I used it once and I regretted using it the time I used it, so I wouldn't use it. Alright, Controlled Chaos. You lean to alter chaotic forces to your advantage. The maximum negative insanity effect is reduced from 50% to 28%. That's having how badly a chaotic effect can hurt you. That's very good, I think. It makes your bad rolls less bad. You may activate this talent to consume any Chaos Orb you have, gaining 10 insanity per orb. That's not so good, because by the time you would have enough Chaos Orbs to use this, you're going to have tons of insanity already. I would rather have this generate Chaos Orbs at the beginning of the battle and maybe some insanity. But yeah, the way that works is backwards. By the time you have enough Chaos Orbs to use this, you're already going to be full up on insanity, or close to anyway. Alright, Frenzy. Enter a killing frenzy for 3 turns. This is the Majeyal abilities, and this is why I like the Drem, this specific ability. During the frenzy, the first time you use a class talent, it has no cooldown, but does if used twice. This does not work for inscriptions, talents that take no turn to use or have fixed cooldowns. That is why I can use Dark Whispers twice in a row no matter what, and Cacophony twice in a row no matter what. I stick it on V, which is where I start my buffs on most characters. This guy doesn't have any buffs that I use every battle except for this. So always start that off, and then 2, 3, 2, 3. Like I said, you're not going to have enough insanity unless you were just in a fight to do Cacophony twice, but you will if you do a Black Monolith, which is fine. I think it is kind of annoying that you have to generate insanity each time you want to use Cacophony, but it's doable for the damage you're getting out of it. Spike Skin. Your skin grows small spikes coated in dark blight. When you are hit in melee, the attacker starts bleeding black blood for 5 turns that deals 68 darkness damage each turn. It's doing darkness damage, so it's increased by our damage stats on our cultists, which is nice. This effect may only happen once per turn. You are empowered by the sight of the black blood. For each bleeding creature in radius 2, you gain 5% all resistances, limited to 3 to 4 creatures. Now, normally I leave this at 2 to 5 because I don't want to be getting hit by more than 2 enemies at once. Normally, I just want to be getting hit by 1 enemy. Worst case scenario, you get into a corner like this, and you got 3 enemies hitting you, maybe 4, but normally right there, it should be a corner like this where the wall goes out a little bit. But most of the time, you want to be in a corridor like this. So you shouldn't be getting hit by 3 enemies at once. It is still possible, though. And they have to be within radius 2 of you, so that lowers the amount. 5% all resistance is amazing. However, to get the most use out of this, I'd be having to play stupidly. So I usually leave it at a 2 or 3, but I think I had an extra point that I couldn't justify putting it anywhere else, so I just went there. Alright, Faceless. Your faceless visage is puzzling and emotionless, allowing you to more easily resist mind tricks. You gain 14 mental save and 32% confusion immunity. I went 2 points in it. I could have gone 3 or 4, but it would just be for the confusion immunity. The mental save, you should be beating them with Luck Drinker and Dark Whispers as it is. But, I mean, again, that depends. But mostly I only grabbed this for the confusion immunity. Alright, From Below It Devours. Amazing spell. It's basically the Entropic Maw, but I don't have to build it up. So, normally, when I'm fighting someone, if this wasn't there, I could see into the room, but I can see like 1 person here and 1 person here, but I know there's a ton of people in there. So what I do is I shove this guy right in the middle, and what it does is it pulls everyone around, and then I can do my Dark Whispers right on top of him, and it's getting a bunch of people. So this guy you definitely want to max him out eventually. At 1 out of 5, it's actually good enough to do through mid game, but later on you're gonna want to put things somewhere, and this will make his tankiness better, so the Rand bosses aren't gonna blow him up. But normally they don't anyway. But yeah, your affinity with things that dwell deep beneath the surface allows you to summon a hungering mouth. The mouth has 1698 bonus life, so that's bonus life, lasts for 9 turns and deals no damage. Each turn the mouth will draw all creatures in radius 10 3 spaces towards itself and force them to target it. Its bonus life depends on your constitution, stat, and talent level. Many other stats scale with level. Alright, let's look at this guy. See, he's got 4,600 hit points, so even at level 1, he's going to have around 2,000 hit points, which is just amazing. So not only does he pull things in, he also taunts them. And it's everybody 3 spaces each turn. Like, that's just insane. Even if they were super fast and they can move like 2 turns per, unless they can teleport 10 radius away, he's still going to be dragging them in. This is an amazing spell, so I would use it. It both helps you do damage on more targets at once, and it protects your ass. The only problem I have with it is it doesn't give you insanity, so I still have to cast Black Monolith whether or not I want to. Alright. Where are we going from here? Celestial Light is decent enough, but I didn't have the... You're not going to have the category points to take it because all these things are so awesome. And also, I wanted 2 more inscription slots. The final battle is a lot about sustainability, especially with casters who don't have a lot of damage. You can't just blow people up. So you're probably going to need 5 inscription slots on this guy. Celestial Light would be a decent alternative, or Tinkers would be amazing, but I think my Tinker died. I don't remember. Or no, this was the guy where... Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I only got 7 escorts. I went through everything twice, and I couldn't find my last 2 escorts. But anyway, yeah, if you get Tinkers, that is obviously a better... that's a better contribution than just 1 inscription. But again, they have a lot of generics they need to spend stuff on. You could take a lot of points out of Beyond Insanity. You could take some out of Drem. If you don't go Doom, that'll save you some points, but Calamity is kind of like an all or nothing thing, in my opinion. Did we read Preordain? I don't think we did. Alright, Preordain. Your subtlety alter the course of events to cause your foes further misfortune. For each stack of jinx beyond 6, enemies will also suffer 7% chance to fail talent usage. So that's a 4 stack times 7 is 28% chance to fail talent usage. That's like almost... That's a decent poison's worth, so that's very good, and it's also in pseudo AoE. It's not really AoE, but it is. It'll do more targets than one at a time. All right, so where do we want to go from here? Let's go to Prodigies. Prodigies, what do we want? I went Armor of Shadows. It's the first time I've ever done Armor of Shadows, and I'm pretty glad I took it. I think Pants Off, Dance Off is the one who suggested it, but Armor of Shadows, it requires 50 Constitution, but you can use items to get yourself up to 50 Constitution. I went ahead and maxed it because I'm lazy. I hate saving items to mess with stats anymore. I used to do it all the time, but I don't anymore. You know how to protect yourself with the deepest shadows. As long as you stand on an unlit tile, you gain 40 armor, 50% armor hardiness, and 20% evasion. That is huge, especially because you have to wear light armor, or if you do wear light armor, that 50% hardiness, you're basically missing 50% hardiness, so that's good. The 40 armor is amazing. Stacks with this, your armor abilities, which is really good. And then you need to be on an unlit tile, which isn't a big deal, because anytime you deal darkness damage, which is all the time, you will unlight both the target tile and yours. I thought early on that would make it so you can't see them, but as long as you have a high enough light radius to get where they are, it doesn't matter that the tile's unlit. You can actually still see it. The armor bonus scales with your Constitution. You can see we have 79 Constitution through whatever means, but that gets up to 40 armor. 20% evasion is also huge. I've actually wanted to try an evasion build with a dwarf for a very long time, but I just never did, or I haven't yet. Spine of the World is the second one I took. Your back is as hard as stone. Each time that you are affected by a physical effect, your body hardens, making you immune to all other physical effects for 5 turns. I really didn't know what to take otherwise, and this is just a good all-around one. Cauterize, I've never liked it. Everybody else likes it, but I don't. You can take, if you forget about Constitution, you just get 50 for Armor of Shadows, and you max out Strength. You can go Pain Enhancement Systems, and that'll basically, you'll have Strength around 60, 70, depending on your items, and that'll add half of that to all of your other stats. So you'll get a 35 bonus to magic and a 35 bonus to cunning, which will increase your crit chance, which is decent enough. Not an amazing choice, but it's decent enough. I did want to do Subcutaneous Metallization. When your life dips below 50% of your total life, an automated process turns some of your lower skin layers or other internal organs into a thick metallic layer for 6 turns. While the effect lasts, all damage done to you is reduced by a flat amount equal to 100% of your Constitution. This effect can only trigger once every 10 turns. Problem is, I was told to take Armor of Shadows first, so I did, and by the time I got to level 42, I was way too buffed up to even worry about Subcutaneous Metallization. Like, it was very hard to kill me at this point. Another one, I tried to take Fungal Blood. If you're playing with Entropic Gift, if you want to really get it up, this is amazing. For that purpose only. Fungal spores have colonized your blood so that each time you use an infusion, and we've got 5 inscription slots, so you can fill them. All the best ones are infusions anyway, so basically you can use this 5 times in a row. You store 171 fungal power. You may use this prodigy to release the power as a heal, never more than 333 life, and remove up to 10 detrimental magical effects. That's not as great because magical effects, they're the worst, they're the least dangerous of all of them. The physical and mental effects are the ones you want to clear, not magical. Fungal power lasts for up to 6 turns, losing the greater of 10 potency or 10% of its power each turn. The amount of fungal power produced and the maximum heal possible increase with your Constitution maximum life. Every time you use this, you gain Entropic Backlash, but it's a low heal, but look at this. You could do, it doesn't take any turns, so you can do a no-turn infusion, and then a no-turn Fungal Blood, then a no-turn infusion, then a no-turn in Fungal Blood. So it actually adds up heal-wise. Basically, it adds, let's look at this. Basically, it adds 171 health to every infusion, regardless if it's a healing infusion or not. It just also happens to give us Entropic Backlash with it, so if we wanted to build up our Entropic Backlash, we could use all of our infusions at once just to really power it up all at once. 5 turns worth of heals, all condensed into a 0% turn Prodigy, so it's really nice. Hidden resources, no, I don't need that. Arcane Amplification Drone, that could be nice, especially since your damage is split between Temporal and Darkness. This would be a good one to do. I like to do this one with the Enorthal. You create an Arcane Amplification Drone at the selected location for 3 turns. When you cast the spell that damages the drone, it will ripple the damage as 160% arcane damage of the initial hit in radius 4. Obviously, this wouldn't work with Dark Whispers and Cacophony, but if you went the Nether build, it would actually be pretty decent. And Entropic Gift too. Well, no, that wouldn't, because that's overtime. But yeah, there are uses for it. I think that's where we're going to leave it for Prodigies. You could do Endless Woes, but it's really crap. Darkness damage you do has a 20% chance to blind the target for 5 turns. And then I don't think it has temporal damage on any of these. Eye of the Tiger, no, you don't want that. Wind Touch Speed is always decent if you can actually get it, but you probably can't get it. Temporal Form could be okay as well, because you can wrap temporal threads around you, assuming the form of a Tell-U-Gorath for 10 turns. The cooldown's 30 turns, but I mean, this is okay. While in this form, you gain Pinning, Bleeding, Blindness, and Stun immunity, 30% temporal damage resistance, and your temporal damage bonus is set to your current highest damage bonus plus 30%. 50% of the damage you deal becomes temporal, and you gain 20% temporal resistance penetration. So what you could do with this is you could go mostly penetration, temporal penetration, instead of worrying about darkness. And what this is going to do is take your darkness damage, cut it in half, and send half of that as more temporal instead of darkness damage. So there's a use for it there. I don't like temporal form though. I never really have, even with Alchemist. So that's where we're going to leave it for Prodigies. I would suggest Armor of Shadows, and then either Fungal Blood or Spine of the World is a decent one. I went Spine of the World, but Fungal Blood, if you're using Entropic Gift, is probably the most effective build. Alright, where are we going to go from there? Itemization. Obviously, what you want is you want to build up your resistances as much as possible. If you can see here, I've got 42% resistance to all. That is with thick skin and everything. But basically, that increases most of our resistances to either 50% or above. Physical shouldn't be your lowest. That was stupid. I should have that up to 70% or close to 70%. But they're all above 50, which is serviceable for Insane. It's good. All right, for hardiness... do I have Armor of Shadows activated? I don't think I do. Or I think I did. Yeah, Armor Hardiness. Why is it at 100%? Oh, I think it's because I had Entropic Gift, maybe. No, it's still at 100%. Oh, well. Let's do this real quick. Do Darkness damage. Go to Defenses. Alright. Maybe this is just always unlit. I don't know. But we've got 117 armor hardiness. You need to get at least 50% and then go Armor of Shadows. You can get that via rings, or you get close enough with 3 out of 5 light armor. You don't need 100% armor hardiness, but it's decent. Crit Shrug off 20%. That's decent. I don't have any Crit Shrug abilities, so having 20% is decent. Let's see here. Critical multiplier 210%. Get that as high as you can. Darkness damage 110%. Now there's 2 schools of thought. You can either focus on darkness damage or you can focus on temporal damage, or split it in between both. But I actually think if you go the Cacophony route, since it's such a big damage bonus, I think you're better off going temporal. But I didn't get that choice. I got mostly darkness percentage drops, and when you use the Font of Sacrifice or a Font of Knowledge, I forget what it's called, it's easier to get darkness damage than temporal damage on that. Penetration, I don't know why it's so low right now. I must have some of my equipment off. But you want to get it as close to 100% as possible for one or the other, but preferably both. Crit chance, I've got 82% crit chance right now, but with Luck Drinker that'll go up. Spell power, you needed it at least 80. Mine will go up from here. And also, you're going to be lowering their saves a little bit, so you get a little bit of leeway on there. But the final bosses, I think, have 80 save. I don't remember. Actually, you know what? They might get up to 100. I really don't remember, but I didn't have a problem with it. So shoot for 80 spell power, and you should be okay. Spell speed is fine. It doesn't really matter, but you can stack it up pretty high if you want to via skills. Stun and freeze resistance, always 100%. Confusion, try to get that to 100%, but it's not as important as stun and freeze. If you're stun and freeze resistant or immune, then Confuse becomes your next most dangerous status effect. Fatigue doesn't really matter. Let's go to general. Life, get your life as high as possible, but don't sacrifice anything I've talked about before this just for life, unless it's in the beginning. What else? I think that's it for that. Infusions, I stuck with healing infusions. I had one shield one just in case, and plus I found a decent one, 687 damage for 5 turns with a 14 cooldown, which is decent. Now you want at least one regeneration infusion, because you might have already dropped both of your entropic gifts, and you can read the battlefield and you're going to tell that the entropic gift is going to hurt you if you heal this way again. So you want at least one good regeneration infusion. Heroism is decent, but I don't put a lot of stock in it. I don't like heroism, but it's a damage boost, and they can give you up to 1,000 life, negative life, which is decent, but you have to plan when you're going to go negative, which I don't like doing that. What else? For stabs, obviously you want high spell power, but you want to find one like this. Look, it changes damage 25% temporal and darkness. Now, what that equals is 50% overall damage if you've got the penetration to make that work. So this staff isn't actually that great, but the reason I kept it was because those two percentages together equal more than I could get on any singular amazing staff later. Spell power, you wanted at least 25 or higher. Spell crit chance, you want at least 10% or higher, and that works for there. What else? Boots definitely get undeterred. 47% stun resist is pretty amazing. And then if you go Rift, or even if you don't, if you can afford wearing an item like Void Orb or Fiery Choker, go ahead, because they pull their weight with the on-hit spells, especially with how much, with the dot damage that you're doing. Even without rifts, you're going to be getting those procs even if you're not trying to. So those work really well on Paradox Mages too. Let's do 10 dummies and see how this works before I'm getting some insanity. I just want to see how much damage we can do. Yeah, 12,000 damage. That's about 1,200 damage per turn if it was a single target, so not bad. Not great though either. Like any melee weapon damage user, even if you're an Oozemance or bumping, you're gonna beat the damage of a Cultist of Entropy. So don't expect it to do a lot of damage, but it will be doing a lot of. It does have a lot of utility, and you can do damage from a safe distance, so it's actually very nice. I think that's where we're going to leave it off. I've got cap points. We didn't do cap points, did we? For this build, I would take Chronophage, and then 2 inscriptions, and then you've got your last one. You can either do. It's going to be hard to find points in generic, so I would probably go, unless you're a Kornak, but then you got another category point you need to worry about. You can either do it in Demented Oblivion or Rift. Again, neither one of these are great in this build, because you're going to have to stop your main rotation to get the Herald out. But with Nihil, it might be decent enough on its own just to use it. And All Is Dust is pretty good too. You know what? We never actually finished going through Oblivion. Let's look at this one more time. All Is Dust. Summon a radius 4 storm of all-consuming Oblivion at the targeted location for 4 turns, reducing those within to nothing. Targets within will take 19 darkness damage and 16 temporal damage each turn. Walls and other terrain within the storm will be disintegrated. That is very bad. Walls and other terrain, you do not want to destroy them. However, the second part of this is too good to ignore. Each time the storm deals damage, enemies will have any detrimental magic effect with less than 3 duration, set to 3 duration. So actually this is decent for keeping your Dark Whispers and Cacophony up and adding more stacks to it, but it also destroys all enemy projectiles. but a lot of the time it's going to be hard to use because of the wall destroying capability of it. It's really not good. I can't stress enough how much walls have saved me in this game. Erase. This is very good. Those affected by your nihil find themselves increasingly removed from reality, reducing all damage they deal by 1% and taking 16 temporal damage each turn for each negative magical effect they have. Since you're already going to have lots of negative magical effects if you're summoning the Herald, this will actually equal up to decent amounts of damage, maybe 100 temporal damage per turn, but the reduction in damage is what is really nice. I think it gets up to 3% at 5 out of 5, which is really decent. And then it also works with the negative effects on there, so it'll stack on itself. But I think that's where we're going to leave it off today. I tried doing this one in a little bit more organized manner. There haven't been very many spots where I'm going to edit it together except for the intro and then the skills, but I think let me know how it went, and if there are anything else I need to change, let me know. The next guide I make is probably going to be a Paradox Mage, Physical Paradox Mage, or a Bulwark, but that one will be heavily edited just to see. I'm just going to cut it up into a bunch of small pieces and basically write a script for it, and I want you to remember this one and compare it to that one if you've watched both, and let me know what you think about it. So that's where we're going to leave it off for today. So if you like what you see, please leave a like or comment below, and feel free to subscribe for more Let's Plays, not like this, but more guides like this. So thanks for stopping by.